Simply Scuba presents the Deco Stop Podcast. Hi everybody and welcome to the Deco Stop Podcast. I'm Mark, former dive instructor, and I'm here to talk about scuba diving and stuff. So jumping straight in, we're going to look at the Simply Scuba website. So the two big announcements are the two big brands that have been relaunched on Simply Scuba, both Suunto and Bowshat. Suunto, I imagine you've probably all heard of. Dive computer brand. They've been making dive computers for years and years. And yeah, they're back on the Simply Scuba website. Everything from the humble Zoop Novo, which has been going for a long time, tried and tested dive computer, and yeah, it's just one of those things that you see on quite a lot of scuba divers' wrists, up to their brand new Suunto Eon Steel Black. So this is a completely new edition of the Suunto Eon Steel. It's not just that they've spray painted it black; they've actually changed the software on the inside. So now it actually has dual algorithms. I think I read somewhere that you can now connect to 20 tank pod transmitters, which, yeah, I suppose if you're diving with 20 separate sort of stage tanks, and you need 20 different transmitters. Yeah, go on. But yeah, the real big one is that dual algorithm. You can dive with either the fused RGBM2, which is Suunto's sort of own fancy algorithm on the inside, or if you want to, you can change that to a Buhlmann 16 with gradient factors, so you can pick and choose the algorithm so it matches another dive computer or another diver, so you can sort of pick and choose. Of course, we've got the D5, which is like a watch-sized version of the Eon Steel, kind of. They've kind of changed some of the features and put that into a watch-sized dive computer. But yeah, pretty smart. The D4i, which is their like sort of dot matrix version of it, instead of a color screen dive computer, it's got that dot matrix. What else? We got the Eon Core, which is like a light version of the Eon Steel. Smaller battery, smaller body. It's much lighter. Comes in some sort of bright colours. You got that sort of lime green. You got the white, but you also have pretty standard black. This is more for sort of holiday divers. You don't want something as big and heavy as the Eon Steel on your wrist. You got the Eon Core, and yeah, the Viper Novo as well, which is a good all-round dive computer. All the straps and bits and bobs and compasses. Suunto well known for their compasses as well. So yeah, definitely check them out on Simply Scuba. And also Bowshat. So Bowshat is pretty new to Simply Scuba. They've been on the diving scene for a long time. I think they started in like 1934. They've been around for a long time. They know what they're doing. I think they started more in the spearfishing world, which a lot of the diving brands did. And yeah, they of course make scuba diving equipment, spearfishing stuff, snorkeling, all that kind of all the good bits and bobs. And yeah, so we got their Focia wetsuit, very nice. I've got one downstairs. I'm going to release a video on that as soon as I've done that. I have done a video on the Aquabionic Evo fins. I don't think it's gone live yet, but that should be going live shortly. Nice masks, snorkels, bits and bobs, sort of bags and stuff. More and more is going to sort of pop up on the website as sort of everything's all uploaded, because we've got to do all the images and all the descriptions, all that good stuff. But yeah, stay tuned, and yeah, heading into the 2022 diving season, you'll start to see sort of Bowshat more and more, and yeah, they're a good, reliable, trusted brand. I'm hopefully going to do like a brand video on them in the next coming weeks. To if you don't know about Bowshat, I think my very first mask ever was a Bowshat diving mask. So yeah, they know what they're doing, and they do make some really lovely stuff. And yeah, if you're interested in checking out a new diving brand, yeah, check out Bowshat. Onto social channel updates. The sort of the Instagram and the Facebook. They I've been pretty busy this week, so you probably haven't seen any posts. Yeah, it's been super busy, really. Sort of getting these two new brands sort of up and running. But I'm trying to keep on top of videos, making sure that you always get those. This Friday's Ask Mark, where I talk about sort of wetsuit, undersuits. What else? Someone was asking about the Garmin Descent Mark II pair of fins, that little piece of plastic that you get on the inside of fins. Someone was asking about those. So yeah, if you have any questions, anything that you want me to elaborate on, just let me know in any of our sort of comment sections, or you can send a direct message via Instagram. That comes through pretty much straight to me. So yeah, if you want me to discuss something on next Friday's show, let me know there. Yesterday, I think one of Sean's final videos, which was why you should join a dive club, an interesting video, and yeah, sort of going forwards, I got a video on sort of different types of BCDs, the different styles, and yeah, next week we have all sorts of interesting stuff. You'll start to see more and more product videos coming back, especially with these sort of two new brands coming back in. So yeah, getting back into the swing of things with product videos, and yeah, all of the brands, they're starting to release their latest like 2022 stuff, so all the samples are starting to come in, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about them publicly. So yeah, stay tuned for that on the Simple Scuba YouTube channel. That's where we'll sort of mention it first. And if there's anything interesting that you want me to sort of get in and do a certain video on, again, yeah, just let me know in any of the comments on the YouTube channel. On to scuba news and things that have caught my interest this week. So the first one comes from XDEEP. They announced an obligatory maintenance notification, which is kind of a maintenance recall on their NX700 regulator. They say, and this is a good recall, as it were, the way that they've handled it, and it's a matter of nothing bad has happened, but now that their regulator has been out on the market for a while now, they're starting to come in for a service, and when they're servicing it, they're noticing that a certain part, a membrane on the inside, has abnormally high signs of wear. So they're not too happy about this. They're saying that they haven't detected or received any notifications about any actual failures or abnormalities caused by the wear in the field. No one's had like an actual problem with them. It's just they're not happy with how much it's wearing by actual divers sort of out in the field. Obviously, it was tested before when they were designing it, and when they're constructing it, it's all tested left, right, and center in some really extremely demanding conditions. But leave it to the good old general public. We'll test it and really sort of push it beyond that. So yeah, they basically said that all NX700 first stages manufactured between May 2019 and November 2021 are subject to this maintenance recall. You can easily tell whether your first stage when it was built, because if you look at the sort of laser etching on it, it'll say the NX700, that's the model number, and then right underneath that you'll have a whole bunch of numbers, which is effectively your serial number. The first four should be the year and the month that it was assembled. So the example that they've put on the recall notice, and there'll be a link to this down in the description so that you can check it out, is 1905. So that was May, the 5th month of 2019. So that one would be subject to this recall. And yeah, if it has been manufactured between those dates, they recommend that you immediately stop using it and sort of contact them directly. You can write to them at support@xdeep.pl for more information regarding the next steps. Of course, you can return it to where you actually bought it from, but I imagine that you're subject to those kind of shipping costs. and then they'll get it serviced, and they'll sort of give it that sort of replacement part. They're going to upgrade that sort of membrane to something, I imagine, and yeah, sort of service it free of charge. But as far as shipping costs, I can't make any promises. That's usually a caveat when it comes to some of these kind of recalls. It's like the actual labor and the parts are free, but actually shipping it backwards and forwards, sometimes you can incur a cost. So double check those before, and just sort of be safe. Oh, and one nice thing. Normally, that's kind of it as far as a recall. It's just right. Here it is. Get it back to your local dealer, or get it back to us, and we'll sort of get it sorted out. But they're saying that they're going to offer a free hoodie for everybody to compensate the inconvenience caused to our clients. We've decided that every NX700 set owner will get a free XDEEP signature hoodie in the chosen size and color, black or gray. So I imagine you have to sort of contact the support at xdeep.pl to sort of organise that. But that's a nice little touch. Most manufacturers, it's just kind of, we are sorry, this is the recall, get it back to us, and then sort of a few weeks later, you get your stuff sort of fixed and it's back. But yeah. They're saying that obviously this might take some time. They say the total service and return delivery time can be 6 to 8 weeks for all EU-based customers, around 6 to 12 weeks for countries outside of the EU, depending on the exact location. So, yeah, be prepared to be without your regulators for a fair amount of time. They're aware that this is a huge inconvenience. They're doing it in the mind of safety. So don't be too mean on them. They're doing the best that they can, and these things happen. I've seen quite a few sort of product recalls in my time, and this is one of the better handled ones. The next news story, I'm kind of sad that this happened now, because this is really a Sean story, and that Hamas has claimed to have captured an Israeli killer dolphin spy that was armed with, quote, weapons capable of assassinating its fighters off the coast of Gaza. So they released a video online by the Palestinian organization's military wing to claim to have sort of one of its naval combat units discovered a hostile dolphin, basically, with a muzzle with like a spear gun on the end of it. They said that the naval unit was chased by the alleged Israeli intelligence agents, and it was wearing this like special muzzle over its like beak, and they're saying that it was kind of like sort of hunting it down, and people were saying, well, hang on. Just for like clarity, Israel actually has a fleet of Dolphin class submarines. But Hamas says no. It's not a Dolphin class submarine. This is a Dolphin. They showed this video, and they have this sort of image artists sort of. Interpretation of how this sort of works. And it is basically a dolphin with this like Hannibal Lecter muzzle on the front with a little spear gun right on the end. And they say that they've sort of captured it. This is it's kind of comical. The bottom of this article is quite interesting, because it's saying that Israel has previously been accused of harnessing animals for spying purposes. In 2013, Turkish media claimed that birds tagged with Israeli university tracking devices were being sent on espionage missions. In 2012, an eagle with an Israeli tag in Sudan was captured and touted as a Mossad spy. In 2011, Saudi Arabian authorities detained a vulture on suspicion of espionage for Israel after mistaking a tracking device it was carrying for a spy gadget. A year earlier than that, an Egyptian official said that Israel-controlled sharks could be involved in a number of shark attacks on tourists in the Red Sea. Yeah, it is bonkers, but they're basically seeing Israeli spies everywhere, and I mean, yeah, militaries all around the world have been using dolphins for all sorts of things, especially clandestine stuff. But yeah, they reckon that this is sort of capable of, yeah, just assassinating people. So if you are in the waters and you do see a dolphin with a weird kind of muzzle on with a cylindrical object on top, do be careful. It might be an Israeli spy. I don't know what else I can say about this. In other news here in the UK, I think this was Manchester, a magnet fishing person, I don't know what we call them, magnet fishers, discovered over 1,000 explosives in a riverway, and of course the bomb disposal experts had to come and dispose of them properly. But this is, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast before, but this is becoming quite a big thing, and I think especially after like lockdown, people were kind of bored and trying to think of things to do. This has become a fairly popular thing to do nowadays, where you basically get a really powerful magnet, tie it onto the end of the rope, lob it into some water, and then just pull it back to you and just see what it recovers. And a group of these magnetic fisher persons, they discovered like a haul of like 1,000 small explosive devices. Of course, they called emergency services and the bomb squad, and yeah, I think this was last Sunday. They sort of checked them all out and sort of made them safe. They reckon they were basically long forgotten railway explosives. Instead of going through all of the paperwork to sort of book them back in, they just chuck them in the river. Who cares? No one will notice. Except a few decades later, but yeah, they had to cordon off a fairly large area just to make sure whilst they were recovering them. And I think that the bomb squad had taken some of them to analyze them. The rest were kind of made safe. But yeah, if you do undertake magnet fishing, or if you are sort of cruising around underwater and you do see something quite interesting, do be careful. Underwater explosives are still dangerous, if not more dangerous, because they're a bit unpredictable. But yeah, they're like, yeah, this is a huge haul, something that no one was really expecting. Normally they find like shopping trolleys and bikes and stuff, but now they're finding like explosives. So yeah, do be sort of extremely careful, and do your best to sort of disturb them as little as possible. Mark the location, call in sort of bomb squad, emergency services. But yeah, do your best not to like poke and prod and sort of even get them out of the water, because sometimes even removing them from the water could excite them enough. So do be incredibly careful with anything unusual that could be explosive. And the final news story comes from the United States. This is a great there's a great YouTube channel that I've just started subscribing to, and they're called the Chaos Divers. I'll put a link down in the description below to them. But they're basically solving cold cases of sort of underwater submerged cold cases where the police have kind of run out of ideas, and they recently a few days ago, actually, correction, that was on the 31st of December, New Year's, they released footage of when they basically solved a missing persons case all the way back from 1998. They kind of had a few ideas of where this car was submerged. Basically, this poor lady went for a drive and just sort of never arrived at her destination. Ever since then, the family has never had any kind of closure. They have a couple of ideas where the car could have been sort of accidentally gone into the water, and they're using sort of side scan radar to search the riverbed and the lake bed, and they do find this sort of perfect shape underwater, and they say, well, we reckon that could be her Ford Tempo, and yeah, it turns out to be the vehicle. They of course then hand it over to some emergency services who lift the vehicle. But yeah, all thanks to this group of divers who yeah, sort of go out on their boat, side scan radar, check everything out, and then they send divers down just to double check sort of what it is, mark the location, and then yeah, call in emergency services to do the rest. And yeah, it's just a nice amount of closure for the families to sort of really put an end to that story. So yeah, well done to them, and definitely check them out. They've done a few now, so and the channel's very good. The videos are all great. So yeah, check them out, and yeah, definitely subscribe. Next, we move on to my product of the week, which has to be the Sunto Eon Steel Black. So yeah, as I said at the beginning, this is a new version of the Eon Steel. I released a product unboxing video of it a few days ago. I think that was on Thursday, and yeah, it's a different version to the previous version. They kind of listened to all of the feedback, because divers have been using the Eon Steel for a few years now, and yeah, it's a top-notch dive computer. I've used it before. Very clear, very easy to understand, especially when you're underwater. And yeah, they've made a few little tweaks and changes and upgrades to it to make it a bit easier to use. And yeah, I just had to make it this sort of product of the week. So color screen dive computer, rechargeable battery. So that's quite useful in that, one, it's color screen, so it's very intuitive. As things start to change color, it really draws your attention to it, so that you do know that, oh, actually, no, I'm going a bit too deep, or I'm going up a bit too fast. The rechargeable battery just means that you can top it up as you need to. If you adjust the screen brightness, I think you can get about 40 hours of dive time out of it, which is pretty impressive. At high, you're getting sort of 20-something hours, which still is a decent amount of dive time. But instead of having a removable battery that you have to swap over, it has that rechargeable built-in battery, so you can top it up. So if you're getting down to 25% battery and you want to go on dive 3 or 4 of the day, then just plug it into a USB port, and that tops it up. So instead of having to either take the battery out that still has 25% and sort of cast that aside, you can just top it up as you need to, which I think is a very smart and modern thing to do. It can connect to the Sunto app, which is a pretty smart thing. I've been sort of cruising around the Sunto app, getting used to that, and that means that you can start sort of logging your dives, sort of Bluetooth from your dive computer straight onto your phone, and then I think you can share it onto social media, all that clever stuff. And what you can also do is you can personalize the computer by connecting it to your desktop, and then you can start to customize different screens. So there are 3 different display modes for the Eon Steel. You either have that sort of classic style, which has those circular sort of information bars, or you can have it as pure numbers. There's a third one that I can't recall at the moment whilst I'm thinking of it, but you can sort of pick and choose your preferred style. So if you just want the pure numbers in front of you, great, you can have that. But if you want something a bit more natural to glance at, then you can have that sort of graphic mode. You can set up specific screens that are personal to you. So if you want one mode that's or one screen that's specifically for navigating, then you can set that up on your PC when it's connected to the Eon Steel, and then you can say, right, so I want the depth to kind of show up here, I want my bearings and this, that and the other, and then for the next screen, which is your wireless air integration or something, then you can have that dedicated screen, and you can cycle through those on a dive. So you can have your like normal screen, which is like your NDL or something, and then if you suddenly want to get into navigation, you push a button, it goes to the navigation screen, press another button, it goes to the air integration screen. But it's very personal, so you can chop and change and add and remove certain information, and yeah, sort of make it very personal to you, so that yeah, it's not just a generic off-the-shelf dive computer. It's specifically for you, and it shows you the information that you need to see at that given time. A few different mounting options, which is quite nice. So you have that traditional elastomer strap, watch buckle style strap with a really long strap to go over your dry suit, but you also get inside of the box, you can remove that strap and fit some bungee mounts, so you can actually mount it to bungee. They do supply it with some bungee cords so that you can mount it like that, and yeah, I quite like that because it's giving you options sort of straight out of the box. I used to dive a lot of dive computers with that traditional elastomer strap, but nowadays most of my dive computers and compasses and stuff, they've all got bungee straps just because they adjust to sort of compression at depth. But I think a lot of divers are moving over to that style of sort of bungee strap just because it's quick and easy. Once it's set up to your wrist size, you just kind of push it on, and then as your sort of wetsuit or your dry suit starts to compress at depth, it automatically sort of compresses with you, so your dive computer doesn't just slip down and go around your wrist. But otherwise, Eon Steel, I know a lot of sort of pretty advanced and technical divers who use the Eon Steel, now that you can pick and choose the algorithm that you're using. We're probably going to see it more and more coming into the sort of technical diving world because of that Buhlmann with gradient factors. Yeah, for all levels of diver, the fused RGBM2 is a lovely algorithm for sort of recreational diving and some pretty deep diving as well. They've tweaked it from the previous version and the standard RGBM, but with Buhlmann as well, it can match other dive computers like Shearwater. So if you do have two different dive computers, one as a backup, or if your buddy is on a Shearwater computer, you can dive the Eon Steel, and it should have pretty similar dive profiles on it. But otherwise, yeah, nice, clear, easy to read screen. It's tough as nails. It's got that Zensation glass, which I think is made for like animal enclosures in zoos, I think I read somewhere. So very tough. I remember the first time when they brought out the original Eon Steel, the rep from Sunto sort of showed me one, and as he was doing it, he literally just smashed it against the corner of the table, and then sort of handed it to me, and there wasn't a scratch on it. It's tough stuff. Obviously, don't do that to yours if you're investing in one, but it can take a bit of a beating. And yeah, now it's in this sort of black brushed steel case. So yeah, if you're in the market for a decent dive computer, big screen, color screen, very intuitive. The buttons are very easy to work out, especially in the water as well. So yeah, it is definitely worth checking out the Sunto Eon Steel Black. And on to my question of the week, which this week is, what happens during a service? So this was inspired by that XDEEP Recall that just made me think about equipment servicing. And if you're new to scuba diving, or even if you're not, you might not actually know what happens when you bring your regulators in for a service. So I thought it would just be quite interesting just to talk about that for a few minutes. And yeah, this is something that every diver should be doing more frequently. I always remember a survey. I mean, I say a survey. It was like a Facebook question years and years ago that someone said, when do you, or how often, no, it must have been, when do you get your regulators serviced? And then someone said, when they go wrong. And like, well, that's too late. Most regulators have a service schedule of 1 year or 100 dives, whichever comes first, and that's basically because a lot of the soft materials, the O-rings and the grease starts to disappear, the O-rings start to wear and they start to separate and shred, so and the sealing surfaces start to bed in. So after a while, they definitely need a surface. So the first thing you need to do is go online and find your local service center, someone who can actually service your specific regulators. It's not just a matter of this is a dive center; they can service any regulator that exists or existed under the sun. If it's a particularly old regulator, you might actually find it kind of hard to get them serviced, because after the manufacturer discontinues that specific line, I think they only have to continue creating servicing parts for it for 7 years, I believe. So after 7 years, they're under no obligation to continue to make replacement parts for it. So if your regulators are over 7 years since that specific model was discontinued, it just gets continually harder and harder to find replacement parts. And the parts that you do end up finding are just as old as the regulator, so they're weathered and worn, so do be careful of that. But yeah, find a regulator service technician, someone who can service the regulators and get hold of authentic parts, and then yeah, sort of head in there. It's normally nice if you can give them a heads up and sort of tell them what's coming, so that they can get the parts ordered in ahead of time. It's not the end of the world. It can just save some time sometimes if it's an obscure regulator, but yeah, you sort of go in and you usually get some kind of job sheet to fill out what work you want completed on your regulator, and everything from just the traditional like yearly annual service to like O2 cleaning and anything. But yeah, you're basically sort of signing it sort of over. You usually get some kind of tag as well, some kind of identifier. It depends on the dive center, obviously, how they manage it. But the dive center that I used to work at used to get a ticket. One half of the ticket would get attached onto the actual regulators, so that it was always like sort of marked, and then you'd rip off a thing, and they'd have matching serial numbers on that ticket. So the customer got a ticket, and you'd have to show that to collect them at the end, just so that we didn't hand over your regulators to someone else. And then yeah, they're taken behind the scenes to a servicing technician. Technician will then take out the regulators, look at each of the models, make sure that he's got the servicing kits and the parts. If he doesn't, he'll sort of order them in, and then yeah, they basically have an overall like visual test. You have a look at the regulator, take note of any sort of wear, tear, damage and stuff. Note that down. They'll also note down the configuration, how you have it set up. So the primary coming out of this port on this hose, and they usually draw like a little map, just so that when they come to reassemble it at the end, it goes back together how you brought it in. And then, yeah, from there, they basically disassemble every part and take a look at each of it, again, looking on the inside for sort of unusual wear and tear. Certain parts, usually the softer parts like your O-rings and your diaphragms and your seals and stuff, they all get thrown away. They're perishable. In the servicing kit, you usually get a complete range of O-rings. It used to be for that specific first stage and for that specific second stage. I think nowadays they're trying to turn into more of a universal service kit that works for all of their regulators. But you basically get a bag of brand new sort of O-rings, but you don't sort of put them in yet. So you disassemble it, get rid of the old O-rings, the hard stuff. Yeah, that you sort of have a look at it. You put it in an ultrasonic bath, which gives it a good clean, and then you sort of flush it out. Make sure it's nice and clean. Inspect each individual part and make sure they're sort of up to scratch. If there is an unusually high amount of sort of build up on it, you may incur an extra cleaning charge, because you do have to do it in a very specific way not to damage the actual metal parts on the inside. So that can take quite a lot of time. So there might be an additional charge if your regulators are particularly dirty, especially on the inside. Once that's done, they normally lay out all of the parts and then start to reassemble it in the correct manner. Once it's all put back together, each of the individual components, they're checking over everything again at each point, and then they're going to reassemble it. There is a caveat to that, which I'll mention at the end, but yeah, they start to reassemble everything. Put it all back together, and then you hook it up to the test bench to pressurize it and balance everything, because a lot of the regulators, they'll just need a little tweak here and there just to make sure that the interstage pressure is correct and that the second stage is balancing with the first stage, because a lot of times when you first reassemble them, you pressurize it and the regulator is just going to free flow, because it's all a bit of a balancing act. You've got a lot of springs and moving parts to balance against those different pressures. So yeah, they'll adjust the first stage, adjusting for the interstage pressure, and then they'll adjust the second stage, usually with some kind of inline adjuster to adjust it so that you can breathe from it, but it doesn't free flow, and you can still use that purge button. They'll give it all a good once over, just make sure it's sort of assembled correctly, and then they usually sort of repackage it and sort of give you a phone call or wait for you to collect your regulators. So yeah, there are a few caveats. The first one is if there is an unusual replacement part, so something on your regulator is broken on the inside, if it's something unusual, then yeah, they're going to have to sort of order that part in and sort of wait for that. But then, unfortunately, that does get added to your bill at the end, because these parts, unless it's like part of some kind of recall or something, then yeah, it's usually like sort of normal wear and tear, and yeah, these parts do sort of need replacing from time to time. It's unfortunate, but yeah, they're regulators. They do have moving parts, and they do need replacing, or certain parts do need replacing over time. And if you have mixed brands on your regulator, if it's the pressure gauge or the hoses, that doesn't matter, they're perfectly fine. But when it comes to first stages and second stages, it is crucial that the brands match when it comes to a licensed service technician to reassemble them, especially here in the UK. It might be different in sort of other countries around the world, but here in the UK, because everything is sort of CE marked and tested and everything, it's done by the regulator configuration. So each regulator manufacturer has to have each regulator configuration tested under really severe sort of conditions to make sure that they are suitable for scuba diving. And then it's basically, should something go wrong down the line, the authorities can sort of look at the equipment configuration, go to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer says, oh, well, no, our regulators are built, they're tested, so they should have been fine in this configuration, and then they move on. When it comes to mixed brands, if you have two different brands, like a first stage and a second stage, that's where it gets a bit complicated. It's very much a matter of, okay, it's fine that they do actually work together when you bring them in, but because, I mean, again, it's probably different here in the UK to some other countries maybe, but here especially, as a servicing technician, you can't, even though you can service the individual components, you're not really allowed to reassemble mixed components. The submersible pressure gauge and the hoses doesn't really matter on the brands of those, but when it comes to the second stages and the first stages, they have to match, and they have to be an authorized pair, as it were, because the manufacturers have to have each of the regulator configurations tested under CE, and you basically can't mix and match, because should something go wrong, it could be that combination that hasn't been tested, that could have caused an incident. So your regulator technician, if they do like disassemble your regulators and they are completely separate brands, what might happen, or what should happen, is that they'll service them, they'll change the parts on the inside, but they won't reassemble them, they won't put them back on the hoses. They'll just kind of be loose in the bag, unfortunately, for you as a sort of private individual to then reassemble yourself, because should something go wrong, it will come back on that servicing technician, and they'll basically say, well, why did you reassemble it? This isn't a like certified combination, so it's not in their best interest to do you a favor, basically. Then after they've serviced it, you come in to collect it. You'll get a job sheet. Again, it is like a car service. It'll break down some sort of the cost of everything, and then you'll get your regulators. The most important thing that you do is that you take them for a check dive before you go on any like special diving holidays, because a lot of the moving parts, they'll start to like sort of ease in and get comfortable after the first dive of just 1 hour of repetitive breathing. So then they can start to creep. You'll find that little bubbles sort of come out continually. It's not a free flow. It would just continually sort of deliver gas or something. So it's always worth booking in a check dive, either in like a swimming pool or just an inland dive lake, somewhere safe, somewhere sort of pretty predictable, and then just go for a single dive or two. The more you do, the better it is. And then if it does start to creep, that's fine. Most dive centres are used to it. You can get it back to them, and they'll just tweak it. It's usually free of charge. I can't imagine they'd charge for it, especially if they just serviced it. And then it should be good to go. It's just that first dive or two just takes a while for those parts to all kind of settle in and bed in. So after the first dive, in a lot of cases, they can start to creep. The last thing you want to do is pick up your regulators straight after a service and then jump straight on a plane and go on a week's long liveaboard, because chances are that your regulators could start to creep. It's not an unusual thing to happen. And that's it for the podcast. Do all the remember to do all of the social media stuff, the follow, like, share, subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff. All of the information, the stuff that I've been talking about, there are going to be links down in the descriptions wherever you're sort of listening to this. So if you want to sort of read up on that XDEEP Recall or any of the news stories, the Chaos Divers or anything, there's going to be links down in the description wherever they are, wherever you're listening to this. Don't forget to head over to simplyscuba.com, check out all of the BowShat equipment and the new Sunto stuff. Most of it will be sort of covered by sort of Klarna and Adyen buying options for you. Klarna is a 0% finance option just to make your life a little bit easier. Adyen is a sort of a protective service to protect your payments online. Check out the 2 Minute Foundation, which is our sort of our partner foundation, helping to clean up. Just spending 2 minutes of your day to help clean up your local environment. And again, if you have any particular questions, let me know down in the comments below. YouTube is usually the best place for it, but if you use the hashtag AskMark, it just makes it a lot easier for me to find them. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.